You know, sometimes I'm in the business of just going out there and pissing off as many people as I can. And that is what this video is going to be. Now, I must say as well, it's not really me going out there and making this argument. What we're doing is we're responding to an idea presented on TSN Overdrive 2 days ago. Because we had ourselves the recent edition of the show. It was Hour 3 on the Monday edition with Hayes, O-Dog, and Jamie McLennan. It's the same crew, and it's the same cast. They talk about some of the same things that we usually hear about. Chris Johnston was talking about Austin Matthews, they talked about the Montreal Canadiens, and then they also talked about betting and the Grey Cup. But in this video, we're going over an idea that these three spoke about on air that revolves around the Montreal Canadiens, and that is really going to piss you off. Here's the article by Elias Adam that goes out there and summarizes it. TSN analyst thinks the Canadiens should send Lane Hutson to the Laval Rocket. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, man. Are you kidding me? Ay, ay, ay. So, let's just pause right there. Before we even dive into the argument itself, why the TSN crew spoke about Hutson going down to the A, let's just acknowledge it right here. Lane Hutson has 10 assists in 16 games with the Canadiens this year, on pace for 51 points in 82 games. He has 0 goals on the season, which is, you know, not great, but at the same time, I think nobody was really expecting Lane Hutson to light the lamp in the way that he did in the NCAA in the NHL. Like, nobody was projecting Hutson to get 20 goals or anything like that. He kind of shoots like Mete, to be honest. It's not really that powerful. But Lane Hutson has a really good playmaking edge. He's got 3 assists in his last 2 games, and just thinking about what he's capable of, a lot of people are going to be saying, for better or for worse, this guy should be the #1 power play guy at this point. He is already the most talented offensive defenseman on the team. Sorry, Mike Matheson, that is not a hill I am willing to die on. Hutson has been spectacular. He has brought a new element of light to this blue line in Montreal, potentially the best defender offensively since PK Subban, maybe even beyond that. And he is only 20 years old. So there's a lot to look forward to with Lane Hutson into the future. There's a lot to look forward to with him now. But the argument that the TSN guys go out there and present on their show goes as follows. Some people believe the young defenseman should indeed take a turn with the Laval Rocket. This suggestion came from TSN analyst Jeff O'Neill on the Overdrive show on the recent hour. It's important to note that this proposal isn't a critique of Lane Hutson, but rather of the Canadiens. O-Dog thinks Hutson should go dominate in the AHL and avoid the losing culture that the Montreal Canadiens are currently immersed in. He doesn't want Hutson to be influenced by the veteran's lack of effort. This idea was supported by the other 2 hosts of the show, Brian Hayes and former NHL goalie Jamie McLennan. Hockey insider Chris Johnston, a guest on the show, also noted that sending Hutson to Laval wouldn't be a bad thing. When you look at how a culture of losing has affected other rebuilding teams, it's not so far-fetched. Just look at how difficult it's been for Buffalo to break out of that cycle. Laval is currently playing very well and is well coached. Pascal Vincent is doing an excellent job and knows how to develop young players, something he's done many times within the Winnipeg Jets organization. If the Canadiens management team, led by Hughes and Gordon, were to consider O'Neill's suggestion, Pascal Vincent would undoubtedly help take Hutson to another level. Now pause before we continue on with the rest of this article here. It's interesting, the idea. Mostly because I don't necessarily think it's wrong. Like, hear me out. Buffalo had so many years of being bad, being terrible, being piss poor. In 2014, guess what? They drafted 2nd overall Sam Reinhart. 2015, 2nd overall Jack Eichel. 2016, they ended up taking Alex Nylander, but we're not going to talk about that. In 2017, they took Casey Middlestad, another top pick. 2018, they took themselves Rasmus Dahlin. first overall. In fact, they took another first overall pick a few years later in Owen Power. This team had been rebuilding and rebuilding and rebuilding for years. Like a decade straight plus of rebuilding. The last time they made the playoffs was in 2011. And so, for Buffalo to go through so many years of being bad and have the entire Jack Eichel situation plague its locker room and its fan base, hey, this guy wants out. This guy's not buying in. This guy's engulfed in a culture of losing, and he wants out. Guess what? Eichel gets traded, Eichel goes to Vegas, Eichel wins a Stanley Cup. It's not necessarily all Buffalo's fault that Jack Eichel didn't win a Stanley Cup until 2022 or whatever it was. 23, excuse me. But it certainly did play a big part in why his career progression was a little bit slower than we thought it would be. Buffalo was a losing culture, and Montreal, I don't want to compare them to the Buffalo Sabres of the past decade and a bit, but Montreal is in a pretty bad spot too. And I don't want to make it seem like the solution to all this would be to send Lane Hutson down to the Laval Rocket. I think that's a pretty extreme conclusion to make, but I do understand the point of view here. The argument that says, hey, the team stinks, they're not winning any games. Lane Hutson doesn't have anything to gain by being a part of a team that stinks and is not winning any games. So send him down to Laval, he'll be a number one over there, he'll dominate, he'll get so many points, he'll really refine his offense in the pro capacity. And maybe then, next year, you have Hutson, Mailloux, Demidov, you have whomever it is you take first overall in 2025, like James Higgins, for example, and they're all dominating the team as first-year rookies, like San Jose guys are right now. Okay, maybe a bad example, they did get off to a very bad start after all. But when you think about the Montreal Canadiens, it is quite interesting to note the differences here, how bad the main team is playing, how well the AHL team is playing, and where exactly the development of your guys would be best suited for between the two organizations. Like, of course, Hutson can play in the NHL. He's good enough to do that. He is awesome. He is talented. He belongs here. But does the team belong with him? That's the question. Are the Montreal Canadiens in a spot where playing Hutson these minutes and showcasing him to the best of the Atlantic and the rest of the divisions out here, showcasing him, putting him on the stage, and having him play out his days on a bad team with a losing culture, is that good for his development? Okay, maybe losing culture is a bad way to put it right now. Wasn't really a losing culture when Shea Weber was here, but I digress. Is this idea something that you would be vehemently against? I'd say, from the Montreal Canadiens' point of view, if they want to give fans something to cheer about, hey, having Hutson on the team is a better thing to have than not. But if you wanted to really kind of big brain this, I'm not going to defend the idea. I'm just going to give a devil's advocate POV. If you leave Hutson in the AHL for the rest of the year, you probably lose out a few more games, right? Hutson is so good that his offensive impact can definitely win you at least like 3 or 4 games total on the season if he was on the lineup versus if he was not. So if you lose out on like 8 to 10 points over the year because you don't have Hutson anymore, the question that I'm pondering is, how does that change your draft lottery odds? If the difference between drafting 1st overall and 5th overall is having Lane Hutson in the NHL versus the AHL, do you bite the bullet and say, okay, it's good for your development, you'll go down, you'll be a number 1 guy, you'll play on a good team, you'll play on a winning team, you'll play on a team that wants to be there, and us over here in the main team, we get worse and we draft 1st overall. That's an idea I think is also interesting to talk about. Let's finish off this video by reading the rest of the article here. It's important to understand that the enthusiasm of rookies is crucial to their development. When they lose that aspect of their game, it can be hard to regain. Hutson must not lose this part of his play. I'm not saying that Hutson should be sent to Laval right now, but it's worth considering if things change. The Hughes-Gorton duo will need to stay alert to ensure Hutson doesn't lose his enthusiasm or pick up bad habits from the veterans. We have a gem in our hands, and it would be wise for him to start his professional career on the right foot. And then, if you take a look at it, there's actually a poll on the bottom. Should Lane Hutson be sent to Laval to keep him away from losing on the big club? And the majority of fans actually say no, keep him up here in the NHL team. So there's your response, I guess. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this weird and wacky idea of sending Lane Hutson down to Laval? Not because he's not belonging, but because he might actually have a better winning experience down there. Do you think it's something he's just going to have to suck it up and deal with? Or are the Montreal Canadiens too in desperate need of his services to do something like this? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Roll 99. And bye.